On a quiet and eerie night in Japan, the streets were often bathed in a soft, dim light from the lanterns hanging in front of houses. In the shadows, whispers of a terrifying figure began to circulate, a woman with a face covered in a mask. Her name was Kuchisake-Onna, or the Slit-Mouthed woman, a vengeful spirit that haunted both the living and the dead. Long ago, there was a woman, a beautiful woman who was loved by her husband. She was known for her kindness and grace, and many men admired her. But there was one thing that made her truly special: her beauty. Yet, it was this very beauty that would lead her to a tragic fate. Her husband, deeply insecure about her charm, began to grow paranoid. In a fit of jealousy, he took a knife and brutally slashed her face from ear to ear, creating a permanent and grotesque smile. He thought that by disfiguring her, he would keep her from the gaze of other men, but his actions would have a far darker consequence. The woman, heartbroken and betrayed, died from her injuries, and her soul wandered restlessly. She became a ghost, her mind consumed by the rage of her violent death. As a spirit, she sought vengeance on anyone who dared to look upon her face. But what she became was not just a victim of circumstance. She transformed into something far more terrifying, a haunting figure that could not be ignored. In the years that followed, stories of her began to spread across the country. People claimed that they had seen a woman walking the streets at night, her face hidden behind a mask. Anyone who crossed her path would be asked a chilling question: "Am I beautiful?" And the terror began. The legend of Kuchisake-Onna spread like wildfire, reaching even the most remote villages. People began to fear the dark hours of the night, especially when the moon was hidden behind thick clouds, casting everything in an unsettling gloom. It was during these moments, they said, that she would appear, always alone, always silent, and always wearing the same mask. As the years went on, her presence became more notorious. People who had dared to venture out after dark shared stories of their chilling encounters. One such story came from a young man named Hiroshi, who had heard the whispers of Kuchisake-Onna since he was a child. But like many others, he thought it was just a tale to frighten children. One night, as Hiroshi made his way home from work, the streets seemed emptier than usual. The wind whispered through the trees, and there was an unnatural silence hanging in the air. He quickened his pace, eager to get home before the darkness fully set in. But as he turned a corner, he froze. Standing in the distance, just beyond the reach of the streetlights, was a woman. Her silhouette was tall and slender, and she wore a long, dark coat. The most disturbing detail, however, was the white mask that obscured her face. Hiroshi's heart began to race. He knew instantly that this was no ordinary person. The rumors flooded his mind, but before he could take a step back, the woman spoke. "Am I beautiful?" she asked, her voice soft but cold, like the whisper of the wind. Frozen in place, Hiroshi stood, staring at her. There was something about the question that made his blood run cold. He thought about running, but his legs wouldn't move. Something about the woman, or rather the way she stood, demanded an answer. And so, he did what most people would do in a moment of panic. He answered, "Yes," he said, his voice shaky. He immediately regretted the words, but it was too late. The woman slowly lifted her hands, revealing the edges of the mask. Hiroshi's breath caught in his throat as she peeled it away, revealing the grotesque sight beneath. Her mouth was slit wide open, the flesh torn from ear to ear in a jagged, permanent smile. Bloodshot eyes met his gaze, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. "How about now?" she asked again, her voice chillingly calm, as though nothing had changed. Hiroshi's mind raced. He realized the gravity of his mistake. No one could answer yes to her question and survive. But panic set in, and he could only manage to stammer, "No, you're not beautiful." The woman's expression didn't change, but something about her posture shifted, a dark shadow crawling across her face. A slow smile stretched across her lips, her eyes narrowing with a hint of malice. "I see," she said, her tone darkening. Then, without another word, she lunged at him. Hiroshi's heart pounded in his chest as the woman lunged toward him, her movements quick and unnaturally fluid. He stumbled backward, barely managing to avoid her grasp as she swiped at him with hands that seemed far too fast for any ordinary human. Fear gripped him, and for a moment all he could do was run. His legs finally moved, and he bolted down the empty street, the sound of his own breath ragged in his ears. Behind him, the woman's footsteps were eerily silent, but he could feel her presence like a shadow closing in on him. Every corner he turned seemed to lead to more darkness, and the streetlights became fewer, their glow fading into the oppressive night. He didn't dare look back, knowing that even a single glance could seal his fate. He had heard the stories. Those who dared to face her directly often didn't make it out alive. Her relentless pursuit was legendary, and once she had chosen her victim, there was no escape. As Hiroshi ran, he could feel her getting closer. The air around him grew colder, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He could almost hear her whispering in the wind, taunting him, mocking him for his earlier mistake. He thought of his home, his family, and the safety of his house, but no matter how fast he ran, it seemed like the distance between them never grew. Suddenly, Hiroshi found himself at the edge of a narrow alley. He had no choice. He turned into it, hoping to lose her in the maze of winding streets. His breath was coming in short, sharp gasps as he desperately tried to outrun his fear. He ducked into the darkness, his eyes darting around for an escape, but the alley seemed to go on forever. Then, in the darkness, he heard it, the unmistakable sound of her voice, soft and unsettling, calling from behind him. "Do you still think I'm beautiful?" Her voice floated through the air as cold as ice. Hiroshi froze in place, unable to move. The fear was so overwhelming that he couldn't even think straight. He knew deep down that she was right behind him now. He could feel her presence closing in, the air growing thick and heavy. Before he could react, a cold hand touched his shoulder. The moment Hiroshi felt that cold hand on his shoulder, a wave of pure terror washed over him. His body froze, caught in an instinctual paralysis, unable to move or scream. The fingers on his shoulder were icy, almost like the touch of a corpse, and they lingered there for a moment, sending shivers down his spine. He swallowed hard, trying to summon the strength to turn around and face whatever fate awaited him. But he couldn't. His legs felt as though they were made of stone, and his mind raced with thoughts of how to escape, if there was even a way out. Then she spoke again, her voice just behind him, so close he could feel the chill of her breath on his neck. "Why did you lie to me?" Her voice was a strange mix of sadness and fury, as if she were genuinely hurt by his rejection, though she was clearly more than capable of violence. "You said I was beautiful, but now you see me for what I truly am." The whisper was unnervingly gentle, almost affectionate in its cruelty. Hiroshi's heart raced even faster. The question she had asked earlier, the simple, innocent-seeming question, had been a death sentence, and now he understood why. She wasn't just a woman looking for validation. She was a creature of rage and sorrow, twisted by the violence of her own death. Hiroshi finally gathered enough courage to turn around, and as he did, the night seemed to grow darker still. The alley around him vanished into inky blackness, but the woman stood there right in front of him, her face still hidden behind the mask. The streetlights flickered above them, casting strange shadows that seemed to pulse with each flicker. And then, she slowly removed the mask. Hiroshi's breath caught in his throat. What he saw was more horrifying than anything he could have imagined. Her mouth, her entire face, was slashed wide open, the skin torn from ear to ear in a grotesque, bloodied smile. Her lips were pulled back, exposing sharp, jagged teeth, like something from a nightmare. Her eyes, dark and empty, stared at him with an intensity that seemed to pierce through his soul. It was as if she were searching for something in him, some shred of humanity that had been lost in her endless pursuit of vengeance. "You think you can escape?" she asked, her voice low, almost mournful. "You will never be free from me now." Hiroshi wanted to scream, to run, but his body remained frozen in place. The horror of the sight before him paralyzed him completely. He couldn't tear his gaze away from her twisted smile, and in that moment, he knew this wasn't just a ghost. This was something far worse, a curse, a never-ending nightmare. And then, just as quickly as she had appeared, Kuchisake-Onna reached out with her long, cold fingers and touched his cheek. Hiroshi's body trembled violently under the ghostly touch of Kuchisake-Onna's hand. The coldness of her skin seemed to seep into his very soul, freezing his blood and making his thoughts scramble in desperation. His entire being screamed for him to flee, to fight, to do anything to escape, but his legs were rooted to the ground. He was paralyzed, caught in her grasp, a helpless witness to the horror she had become. For a moment, there was a strange silence between them, just the soft rustle of the wind through the alley and the distant hum of the city. Then, Kuchisake-Onna's voice broke through the quiet, her tone darker than before. "You lied to me, Hiroshi. But I will give you a chance," she said, her voice now almost a whisper, carrying an eerie calm that made the air feel even colder. Hiroshi's mind spun. A chance? How could he have a chance? He had heard the stories, knew what happened to people who answered her question. They either died in terror or vanished into the night forever, consumed by her wrath. Yet here she was, offering him something he never expected, an opportunity to survive. "Do you want to live?" she asked, her eyes narrowing as she studied him, her gaze piercing through the mask of terror that had overtaken his face. Hiroshi struggled to breathe, but somehow managed to nod. He wasn't sure if he was just agreeing out of instinct or if there was a spark of hope left within him, but he couldn't imagine a fate worse than what she had already shown him. "I'll give you one chance," she said, a twisted smile curling at the edges of her mouth. "If you can answer my question correctly this time, I will spare your life." Hiroshi's heart skipped a beat. What did she mean? He had already failed once, and there was no way he could take back his mistake. How could he possibly answer the question correctly now? But before he could speak, Kuchisake-Onna continued, her voice becoming low and almost coaxing, as if she were trying to lead him into a trap. "There's only one way to escape me," she said. "You must answer my question with the right words. But you must be careful. Choose your words wisely, for if you say the wrong thing, you will never see the light of day again." Hiroshi's head spun. The weight of the decision pressed down on him like 1,000 bricks. He couldn't think straight. He knew that her next words could seal his fate. But in that moment, he also realized something else. There was something deeply unsettling about her offer. It wasn't just her appearance, her terrible, disfigured face. It was the way she spoke to him now. It was almost as if she was playing a game, manipulating him, testing him to see how far he would go. "What's your answer?" she asked, almost impatiently, as if she had already decided what she would do next. Hiroshi took a deep breath. He could feel the cold sweat on his forehead, his heart racing as he opened his mouth to speak. I think you're beautiful," he said, his voice barely a whisper, but it was the only thing he could bring himself to say. For a long moment, Kuchisake-Onna remained still, her face unreadable, her empty eyes fixed on him. Hiroshi felt as though the entire world had stopped and his heart thudded in his chest, waiting for her judgment. Finally, her smile twisted into something almost approving, but with a hint of something darker. "You're clever," she said softly, "but cleverness alone won't save you." Before Hiroshi could react, Kuchisake-Onna lunged at him once more. The air was thick with tension as Kuchisake-Onna lunged at Hiroshi, her twisted smile still stretched across her disfigured face. The coldness in her eyes seemed to swallow all the light around them, and in that moment, Hiroshi knew he was facing his end. Her movements were so fast, too fast for him to even react. She reached for him with long, cold fingers, her arms outstretched like a predator closing in on its prey. But then, something strange happened. Just as her fingers brushed against his skin, Hiroshi felt a surge of energy, something primal, deep within him. It wasn't fear anymore, but a raw instinct to survive. Without thinking, he shoved her away with all the strength he could muster, stumbling backward into the wall of the alley. His heart pounded in his chest as he struggled to breathe, his eyes wide with terror. The coldness of her touch lingered on his skin, like an icy burn that wouldn't fade. For a moment, Kuchisake-Onna paused. Her figure loomed over him, and Hiroshi could see the wicked amusement flicker in her eyes. Her lips parted, and she let out a chilling laugh, one that echoed through the alley like the sound of 1,000 voices whispering in the dark. "You think you can escape me so easily?" she taunted. "There is no escaping me, Hiroshi. You are mine now." But Hiroshi, though terrified, wasn't going to give up. In that moment, he realized something. Kuchisake-Onna, despite all her power and rage, wasn't invincible. She was bound by rules of her curse, of the game she played with her victims. There was a way to break free, to escape her, but it would require something more than just an answer. In a flash of inspiration, Hiroshi remembered an old tale his grandmother had told him when he was a child. She had warned him that sometimes the way to defeat an evil spirit was not through strength or logic, but through an unexpected action, something that broke the pattern, something that the spirit wouldn't see coming. Without a moment's hesitation, Hiroshi reached into his pocket and pulled out a small mirror, a gift from his late mother, something he had always carried with him. The mirror wasn't special, just an ordinary reflection of his own face. But in that instant, Hiroshi knew exactly what he had to do. He held the mirror up in front of Kuchisake-Onna, positioning it so that she could see herself. The look in her eyes changed in an instant. There was a flicker of confusion, a brief moment of hesitation. She recoiled, as if the sight of her own face in the reflection was something she couldn't bear. Her smile faltered, and for the first time she seemed uncertain. You shouldn't have done that," she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. But now Hiroshi could see it. There was fear in her eyes. The mirror, the reflection of her own disfigurement, had shattered her confidence. She wasn't the powerful spirit she had once been. She was simply a ghost, a cursed soul, just like any other. Before she could react, Hiroshi took a step back and turned to run. His legs moved faster than they ever had before, and though he could hear her footsteps behind him, growing louder and louder, he pushed forward. He didn't look back. He ran and ran until he could no longer hear her footsteps. The cold air still burned in his chest, but the terror had started to fade. Hiroshi didn't stop until he reached his home, slamming the door shut behind him. He leaned against it, panting, his mind still reeling from the nightmare he had just survived. That night, Hiroshi sat in his room, staring at the mirror in his hand. The reflection seemed so simple, but he knew that it had been the key to his survival. Kuchisake-Onna was gone, or so he thought. From that night on, Hiroshi never ventured out after dark again. He lived his life, always looking over his shoulder, always afraid of the shadows. But he knew something else. He had escaped the curse for now. Kuchisake-Onna's shadow no longer haunted him, but her legend lived on, and the question she once asked him still lingered in the corners of his mind. Am I beautiful? No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't erase the image of her face, the twisted smile that would forever be etched in his memory. And deep down, Hiroshi knew one thing. She would always be out there, somewhere in the darkness, waiting for the next victim to make the wrong choice.